Hello, everybody, and welcome to the free webinar for the Wildfire Resilience Training. My name is Matthew Trumm, and I'm excited to share this specially curated training that I've been working on here with our members of the ecosystem restoration communities. Great team. Got Ashley here today, Kath in the background, some other team players and collaborators, and one of our ERC um, camps, communities out there. And we're going to be excited to share, why we're, putting this together for you guys. So, I am in Butte County. It's in California, northern east of Sacramento. And, we have had a lot of wildfires here in the last 10 years. And like many parts of the earth, we started to see these small phenomena happen, and then they grew exponentially in the amount, the severity of the fires. And in 2018, we had the Camp Fire, which destroyed the town of Paradise, most people know about. And, I've been doing work in permaculture for a long time. I'm an educator, consultant, and designer here locally. And, you know, with that knowledge, I couldn't help but to want to help after the fires, and get out there and start to support this community around me. I'm about 30 minutes from Paradise, and it was a personal thing to me because my daughter was living there at the time with her mother, and they experienced the fire and lost their home. And so, a lot of immediate response work after the fire, dealing with post-fire runoff and things like that. And that started my journey into now it's been 7 years that I've been fully immersed in post wildfire recovery, worked with lots of other community members in different fires in the area. And then in 2020, actually got an even closer, intimate relationship with fire as I lost a home, a family home of mine, and 12 acres of beautiful forest up in Berry Creek, California, which is just another 30 minutes up the hill. And that was a 350,000 acre fire, and had to learn what it's like on a survivor level of recovery, post-fire cleanup, all this kind of stuff. And in my journey and going through other communities, learning from other people, I met some amazing folks doing this work. And I didn't really see a lot of, courses out there about this new phenomenon of megafires, or even, looking at wildfire and wildfire ecosystems in a holistic way. And so that was the inspiration for this course. And I've been contemplating doing it for some time. Right after the campfire, I formed a nonprofit and joined the ecosystem restoration communities. At the time, it was called Ecosystem Restoration Camps. I was invited by John Liu to be part of this council, and then ended up, after the fire, I said, we've got to create a camp for Paradise, after the campfire. And that's what we did. And we became the first ecosystem restoration camp in the United States. And that was my, connection to the ERC back then. And we've been staying connected ever since. And in the fire that I went through here, we started again and created a research and a demonstration site for post-fire recovery called the Treetop Eco Camp. And I was thinking about doing these trainings, and I've been collecting a lot of information over the years, speaking with a lot of people, doing all this research and development. And I had just talked to my buddy Matt, who is actually a former student of mine. He'll come on a little later to talk about his experience, working with me and stuff. And we were talking about putting together some sort of a wildfire, video series training where we're interviewing experts and things like that. And about, I don't know, just a couple days, I swear, a couple days later, Ashley sends me a message from the ecosystem restoration communities, and apparently she had the same exact thought and said, I'm thinking about the next course, and I think wildfire is really the big subject that needs to go out there. There's nothing out there, really in the world that covers it from a ecosystem scale, perspective, as well as looking at all these other pieces of the puzzle. And so, yeah, that's when me and Ashley started to talk and became more and more excited and decided to do this training. So, next, I'd like to bring Ashley on to talk about, introduce herself and how we brought this forward.
Cool. Thanks, Matt. Hey everyone, my name's Ashley or Ash, and yeah, I've been working for the ecosystem restoration communities movement for nearly a decade now. I was involved right from the beginning when it was just an idea in John Lew's head. Uh, and for those who don't know who we are a global movement of ecosystem restoration, agroecology, rewilding, regenerative agriculture initiatives that are based all over the world. And we are a movement that supports one another to grow and develop our initiatives to make sure that we can restore as much of the Earth's ecosystems as possible, as many of the Earth's ecosystems as possible. And yeah, my specific role is in education and knowledge exchange, so helping the ERC leaders, we call them, like Matthew, people running projects on the ground who want to create trainings to reach people around them and kind of scale out the impact that can be had when one very knowledgeable person or set of people can share that knowledge with others and sort of seed the pop-up of all of these other restoration initiatives happening all over the world. And yeah, I kept witnessing wildfires happening all over the place, and I know that it's possible to reduce the risk and restore land after a fire. And I really felt like there was something missing, Uh, there are people who need to know this information so that we can kind of stem the tide of fires happening all over the place and start to sort of reverse the damage. So I was delighted that Matt was so keen to make this happen. And yeah, we're looking forward to explaining the training more to you in a bit.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashley. And yeah, I mean, it's just been a interesting thing, if you have been working with the earth in any kind of way, you start to see these synchronicities and these sort of like magical things that happen. And that's how I know that I'm headed towards the right thing. And that's what it really felt like putting together this training. And all these kind of stars aligned. We've got an incredible lineup of presenters and guest speakers for the course. And yeah, I'd like to share that with y'all. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick and get into it. So first, let me just share the website. Sorry, I thought I already had it up. There we go. Okay. So here's our website. It's in the ecosystem restoration communities.org, and we're going to be posting that, of course, everywhere where you'll see this video. And of course, we have another free webinar coming up next week. That's an important thing to think about. That's Monday, the 3rd of November, and it's 6 p.m. on Pacific time. And I will have to post the European time, but you can kind of figure that out. It's probably not, it's really late. Yes, I believe in the morning. It's early in the morning, in fact. But here in this, you'll see who is this training for? Um, it's really it can be for anyone, but primarily, we're looking at people who live in fire ecologies, landowners, community members, anybody can be affected by these fires. And there's different ways that you can be involved in the change to make it better. Land management organizations and practitioners, this is a training that can be brought to groups of people, and we're having a group discount as well in the course. So for more than 10 people, we are offering a group discount. It's going to be really important for fire survivors, communities that have been through wildfires. We have the biggest part of our course is on post-fire recovery, both the land and the human element of recovery. And yeah, we're going to teach you how to, reduce the risk of wildfire, respond to healing after a fire, and then how to regenerate your land and community, both pre and post fire. Okay. We really hope to have you learn this stuff before there's a disaster, right? Because that's really when you want to build your resilience. But unfortunately, so many people on this earth, and more frequently now than ever in places that we never would have expected to see fire, Maui, all these other parts. There's a fire right now, Kathy was telling me about in South Africa right now, and it's spring there. It's a really weird time to have a wildfire, but that is what has been happening exponentially over the last 20 years. And there's a reason for that. So we want to explain why that is. I'll be sort of your guide through this course. And, I'll be doing a lot of the teaching, obviously, but I am mostly trying to curate an incredible group of presenters. And I'm going to be bringing people back to center throughout the course, which is looking at this through a holistic ecosystem or biomimicry lens. We're going to be always bringing back specific information in the course back to this, holistic view and how it plays into that picture. And that's really important to me. Keeping it simple was really important to me. And also, just bringing information that's relevant to people and looking at it, not like trying to say this is how you do every single thing step by step, but why, when, and where to do this, to do things so that you can come up with your own how based on your own bioregion and specific situation. And that's a really important part here. Who's in our course? This is exciting. So we have John Liu, of course, coming in, the founder of the ERC. Brock Dolman, incredible wildlife biologist, permaculture educator, the beaver guy, that's like the beaver man, talking about all kinds of ecosystem function. Geoff Lawton, Lee Klinger, who's an incredible person doing fire mimicry work all over. His stuff is really amazing. Just wrote a book called Forge with Fire. That's a must read. He's going to be breaking down his work with fire mimicry. Raleigh Latham, that's part of the Water Stories crew, going to be bringing his perspective on water. We got soil experts like Keisha and Casey Ernst, wildfire mapping experts like Zeke Lunder, Alan Booker, kind of a whole systems design guy he's a engineer by trade and works with big system government connection, how to train like big corporations and government agencies on holistic design. We've got local tribal leaders here, local to me, that are going to be, bringing their knowledge, the traditional ecological knowledge, to this. Greats like Paul Wheaton, Permies.com, and so many more. Rebecca, who's actually on, I believe, here today. She is incredible all-star who's been helping post-fire communities all over the world, all over the world, but US mostly, and developing, an incredible program to help fire communities. So she's going to be big in the post-fire, um, recovery side of things, and we're developing a really awesome team for that because it's a very special and sensitive spot to talk about, which we all know too close. Natural building experts, soil experts like Matt Powers, OGs in the permaculture game like Penny Livingston Clark, Eric Olson, bringing that professional permaculture perspective, and other amazing people that we're still bringing in on this course. So there's so much I could say about each one of these people. They're all stars in their own rights. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. Like really, really, really cool crew, and I get to meet and talk to a lot of people that I've always wanted to have deep conversations about these subjects. So, I'm excited. I hope you're excited about that. Now, let's talk about the layout of the course. Excuse me. So here we go. So going through this, and I'm going to not be able to break it all down, but I want you to understand the flow of the course. So first of all, we want you to understand it's an online course. It's going to be 7 months of content spread over about 9 months. We're going to take a break in the summer, but it starts off right off the bat with understanding ecosystems. It's about 2 hours of content per week that we're going to be sending you. And you'll have a whole week to watch the content. And then at the end of each week, on a Monday, we're going to be doing a Q&A. And we're going to do that in 2 time zones of the earth so that people have an opportunity. And those Q&As will also have guest panelists that you will be able to ask direct questions to that are relevant to that part of the course. And that's really the interaction part. It's a two-way street here, and we're going to learn from each other as much as we are from all the people that have brought in to curate this course. Understanding fire and fire ecosystems, it was really important for me to put this in the beginning of the course so that we understand the system's function. What are the underlying systems function of ecosystems and ecosystem engineers? These elements in the forests in these ecosystems that have in a healthy ecosystem played a role from the beginning of time to keep a balance, and what is missing and how do we mimic those elements. So that's very much how that part of the course lays out, breaking down the main frame, actual elements of earth, wind, water, soil, and fire, and obviously emphasis on the fire element. And then we go right into the largest part of the course and the most, really relevant piece for so many people, which is the restoring land and livelihoods after fire. We really bring in every angle to this from, the immediate needs, temporary food, shelter, housing, toxic runoff mitigation, erosion control, how to navigate the government and acquire resources, how to form community groups and then navigate like basically the long-term recovery that is part of it. It's, breaking it down to the first 6 months, 6 to 18 months, what to expect, and the long-term recovery that's part of it. And we've brought people that have had personal experience as well as working with many different communities in this way to bring all the best knowledge together for this course. Then we go into Module 3, Reducing Wildfire Risk. This is really a design-centric piece of the course. It's Permaculture Design 101, basically, holistic design. What are the themes behind fire resiliency, water systems access, fire-wise structures, natural building, and alternative building, new building models that, are fire-wise for these kind of areas, how to create a management plan, how do we look at ways to create some kind of an income even from the work that needs to be done, and or resources for local communities. Um, Exciting piece there that I thought was really important. And then the mid-fire action. So, during a fire, right? Alert systems, communication systems, evacuation systems, whole systems response protocols is basically working with how do we train our governments and our communities to be better at this, because that is the critical part when things do go bad. How do we respond in a way that is, just better all around? And lastly, or no, not lastly yet, we're still in module 5. So stewardship, now we're going into a long-term plan, right? Looking at how do we look at this long-term management of these spaces, whether it's the land or the social systems, right? How do we create capacity building for our local communities and for our lands? The last one, the most important piece that we couldn't leave out to this is the action, right? None of this matters if we can't get into action. So, module 6 is all about making a plan, getting connected to local groups doing this work. So, we're trying to connect you with work that's near you. As I said before in this, it's we're not trying to tell you how to do something specific, because everywhere on the earth has its own context, has its own applications to this information. So we can give you a lot, and we will be going into specific ecosystems and breaking those down from people that are from different parts of the world. But we want you to be connected to as something that's local as possible. So we're going to be creating alliances. We're going to be doing a design exercise where you get to work together to come up with a fire resilient design for your situation, or teaming up together. And we'll be able to have a lot of Q&A at the end of this, a lot of feedback from the experts, from other group members, and then we're going to showcase a whole bunch of different projects around the world that you can learn from, do internships for, come on the ground and see, the demonstration sites that are being put together all over the world. So that's the layout. And of course, everybody's going to ask the cost of the course. So the important thing to know is that we have payment plans for the course. So we really tried hard to come up with a cost that was reasonable and affordable and honored everybody involved, and allows entry to everybody to get into the course. So we're offering payment plans per month. Right now, you can get the early bird discount. So that's a big 15% off the entire course. And we're going to be likely extending this as well, but for our next webinar. But oh yeah, we already got it to the 30th of November. And we have tiers of the course as well, for low, a mid tier, and we call it pay it forward tier, which then goes back into supporting the ability to offer these lower tier discounts, which is really important. I mentioned the group discount earlier, which is a 10% discount, and it offers for groups 10 people or more. So if you are part of a wildfire, group, or that you do kind of restoration work, whether you're tree companies or other ecology groups, things like that, you want to skill up, this would be a great opportunity to get this in your nonprofit, your government group, etc. So we want to offer that. And of course, we wanted to offer a discount, a wildfire survivor discount. So that's another 10% for wildfire survivors. So if you're a wildfire survivor and you get in on the early bird discount, you can have a 25% discount for the course, which is really good. Um, and you can see the prices here. Um, so we are trying to make this really accessible. 80 dollars a month. Okay, let's break this down. How many people out there go get fancy coffees, a couple times a week, right? How many people have a bunch of online accounts that, subscriptions that they don't even know what they are? Like this is not that much money for the amount of information that we're going to be bringing out here. If you are in a fire ecology, if you're somewhere that could burn, you feel that right now, or you've been through a fire, I am packing it in on this course. We've really put together a lot to make this happen for you guys. So I really encourage you to check out everything here on the website, and tell your friends about it. And we're going to be answering your questions as well. If you have questions about the course, either come to our next webinar, which is on the 3rd of November. Again, it's 6 o'clock on Pacific time. And you'll have to look up where that lies wherever you live on the earth. But it's going to be convenient for the Americas and some other places. Um, and you can also email us at hello@erc.earth. And I think we're posting a lot of this stuff here, of course, on when we post this out. Um, yeah, what else to say? Ashley, you wanna chime in a little bit at all here? Anything else you want to add to this? Okay. Yeah.
I think you did a good job there, Matt, of explaining how you put the training together and what the student journey will be like. And yeah, I agree that for the price, the quality of this product in terms of the caliber of the teachers and just how important this information is for people experiencing wildfires, but also planetarily, like just imagine if we could turn the tide on wildfire and really, really reduce the severity of them and the impacts that they have, what a difference that would make to all of us. So I think now we're going to be welcoming Rebecca, who's one of the teachers on the training, to share a little bit about her story and what she'll be talking about as a presenter.
Yeah, Rebecca, you want to talk a little bit about your work and sort of what you're trying to bring to this?
Thank you, Matthew. It's great to be here with everybody. Yeah, my name's Rebecca Uccellini. Uccellini means little bird in Italian, so if it helps you remember it. Um, I've been a permaculture designer since 2006, and for the next decade, I really focused on building food forests and food deserts. Mostly was doing that work across Maui, Molokai, and Lanai, and a lot of work in different parts of Africa, Southeast Asia, Central America, and eventually doing work with war refugees in Greece, Macedonia, and Jordan. And my focus was really access equality and those basic needs that were not available to communities and opening up those access points. And all of that work really prepared me for moving into fire ecology landscape myself. I had a medical emergency that brought me to California and then Oregon, and I just kept feeling like fires were following me. And each community, I was in Sonoma County, and then I was in a part of Oregon, and that whole community was burned. And then I moved down to the CZU fire area in the Santa Cruz Mountains, Mamutsan land, and we lost over 1,000 homes in that community. And what I realized was that the work I had done in mostly working with refugees, it really prepared me for the work I was supposed to be doing in that community. And especially when the fire hit during COVID, we had never experienced a megafire and lockdowns. And so what was incredible about that moment was all the other systems were out the door, and it allowed for an opening for new systems to be developed because they had never done it before. And so we built Santa Cruz Relief, and it became a really successful model for mutual aid in our community. I worked with over 700 fire survivors in the CZU fire. I got to meet and work with Matthew doing some post-fire remediation and toxic debris runoff controls. And then the fires hit my community in Maui. I guess I should just say, in between then in 2023, the property that Matthew came to and spoke about, we had our own disaster. We had major mudslides in the beginning of 2023 and 8 back-to-back bomb cyclones, and we lost our road. We were trapped on the inside with 26 others for 61 days. And we were the first people on the ground to reach our local community that had lost like 20-something homes with massive redwoods going through their houses before the government could even get in. So we were providing everything from firewood and getting people food and water and figuring out ways out. And my partner made a back road through the mountains to be able to get a little mule that could go in and out. And it was a pretty incredible experience. And like Matthew said, you never learn something as well as when you've lived it and it's been lived through your body and in your system. And suddenly you see it through a really different lens, and you understand very clearly and very quickly that the system design is not designed from that lens, and it's not designed from a trauma-informed lens. And so it's really up to us to help to inform the new systems that are getting developed. And so I've worked really hard on policy change and shift in the both from the CZU fire, made policy changes that affected the Maui fire, and then with the Maui fire we had another 11 policy changes that we're able to have gone through on a federal level that will affect future disaster survivors. And so every single disaster, the hope is the system gets better and better, but it's only informed by us being able to help move that system in that right direction. And I really think that in the crucible of a fire, we are invited to remember that the most vital tool we have in our recovery kit is not something that we can pack away or hold. It is each other. It is community. And again, any person who's lived through it will tell you that the most powerful moments right after a disaster or a fire is looking around and seeing the way in which our human ecosystem remembers something deep inside of all of our bones, that like we actually know how to take care of each other. We actually know how to do this. And it's not until the government and all the big systems come in, and then they're kind of waving the carrots and saying you got to run here and do this and do that, and all of a sudden there's this great forgetting that happens. And so a lot of the work I do is about staying in that remembering and building communities that are going to be the most resilient in the time of disaster, because we are, whether we like it or not, we're living in the times of disaster. And so I really think that the fire's invitation is to help awaken us to this truth. When everything else burns away, what really remains is that web of relationships and the sacred, fragile, resilient network of humans and our connection to the earth. And most of the fire survivors I've worked with over the years, in year 2 or year 3, they really say that was one of the gifts the fire gave them, is that knowing and that remembering and them seeing through new eyes now. So a lot of the work I do is, I do a year-long training, and I do shorter trainings for new fire communities, and it's really disaster relief through the permaculture lens. And I'll be doing a very shortened version of parts of that are about the human ecosystem for this program. And, I'd say that it will start with everything from gathering of, evacuation wisdom from 8 different fires now, and different things that you can do that can, not only potentially save your home, but also can save you valuable time, months of work later, having to deal with insurance and various FEMA and agencies later on. I'll be going through some of the system design and ways in which, you can, what I call, get through the disaster obstacle course. And it really is an obstacle course. Anyone who's lived through it and had to go through, especially in the US, It's very easy to fall in the exact same holes. And so some of what I've done is, I had never lived through a fire before. And yet when I took my friends and neighbors who had lost everything and they were completely had no mind because had disaster brain, and I walked them through and saw that kind of obstacle course. I did it once and I did it again, and then their neighbors asked and I did it with them. And once you walk through an obstacle course 500 times or 1,000 times, you can kind of do it with your eyes closed, and you can show people the pitfalls not to fall into. And there's simple things, I'll give very clear ways of avoiding, certain things that are like with FEMA, for example, if you live on a property where there's multiple homes, but they all have one address. This is one of the most common things that happens is, or you have roommates, everybody applies with the same address, and that automatically gets you flagged as fraud, and you'll get stuck in what I call FEMA purgatory. And sometimes it takes 18 months to get out. And before anybody actually gets through that, they usually give up. And so right at the beginning, to know early on that when you fill out your first paperwork, you're going to fill out your address and you're going to put unit 1, unit 2, unit 3, unit 4 for however many. And you make sure your landlord knows that that's your unit number. And all of a sudden now, those are all seen as different addresses. You don't get flagged as fraud, and the whole thing can move through. And you're getting rental assistance in 2 months rather than waiting 18 months or giving up or ending up homeless. And so there's so many technical little systems like that, that just knowing is half of the battle. And so understanding how to document and understanding things like FEMA public assistance. Over and over again, I see in communities all these good-hearted humans that show up and they're volunteering their time and they're bringing their own chainsaws and they're showing up with their backhoe and they're doing all this work. And it's wonderful that they're all giving of that time, but all of that work is actually reimbursable if you know how to document it in this certain way. And they don't tell you until 9 months later how you had to document it in order to get it reimbursed. And so just knowing how to document it, you need to know, the make and model of even the chainsaw you're using, and of the VIN number of the backhoe you've got, and hours that each person's in operation, but you document that, and you work with a local nonprofit or a church or a school, and they can apply for FEMA public assistance, get all of that reimbursed so that people are not burning out and you're not losing valuable resources. And then they have the ability to support later. They can still volunteer their time at a later date, but they are not losing all that money that they could be actually making. So I also have a lot of pieces around body ecosystem and health. I've worked really closely. I'm an herbalist as part of my background, and I've worked really closely in post-fire remediation work. And I started seeing more and more of my friends and colleagues getting sick afterwards. And I worked very closely with different healing huis that would be set up right after a disaster to help people who had injuries or who were sick or going through, even first responders going through health stuff, asthma, all kinds of challenges in their body. And we were able to get a study done on Maui that's going to be following people for 10 years post-fire. And it's the first time there's been a longitudinal study done. And some of the things we were able to work with are certain biotoxin binders and different chelators that were able to help people to process all of the toxins so that you're not using your own filtration systems, your liver and your lungs and your kidneys to filter everything out. And we did blood tests and urinalysis before, middle, and after, and it's sort of now a best practice. However, it still is something we have to push county by county because it's not part of the federal programs. So currently it's only being offered to firefighters and first responders in California. And it's also paid by different outside philanthropic efforts for like IHON Clinic, which is doing things like glutathione pushes and nebulizer treatments, these biotoxin binders, and different herbal allies that we're able to utilize, like mullein and marshmallow and milk thistle and ashwagandha. We also talk a lot about kind of the gut health piece and rebuilding your own microbiome, and especially after you've just lost your home, quite literally, your whole microbiome is different. When you're in a different location now, suddenly, and everything that you knew as home is different, your entire microbiome changes in your body. And being able to support that microbiome so that it will support your mind and your emotional health through the whole process is really critical. We'll also talk a lot about kind of best practices for building effective mutual aid and kind of human design systems to help in the recovery. And I think what you said was so beautiful about how we've lost so many of the tenders, Matt. And, we get to fill in and be the tenders. And we get to, by understanding what your role is and what your strengths are, being put in the right place so that you know how to tend for the long term so that we don't have people burning out over and over again. My colleagues, I'd say we have a very short lifespan, and typically people 6 months down the road after a disaster, their cortisol is all wacky and they've pushed too hard and they're exhausted and depleted. And so how do we set up systems so that we are taking care of each other along the way? And there's a lot more. I don't want to take up too much time, but I know that, right now we're living in a time where disasters are inevitable, but when we can respond like nature does and our recovery becomes regenerative, we're going to be able to heal together and really reforest the soul of humanity. And I'm excited to be here with all of you. And thank you so much for having me, Matthew.
I can't understate how much of a awesome. I was gonna say, well, I'll just say a badass. Okay, this is mostly a adult audience here. Yeah, Rebecca is quite the badass. She is put together. I mean, some incredible information. Not only was she on the ground, like doing all this work and actually just helping all these people. I mean, she was telling me stories about how she's been you know, appealing like these claims for folks in Maui and, getting thousands, of applications pushed through, figured out how to do this. So she's not only doing it, right, and figuring out in real time, but then she's also capturing all that information and curating it, putting it in a form where she can share it out with other communities. And so she's been working really hard at this for many, many years. And I'm so honored to have you as part of the course, Rebecca, because your work has been paramount. It's people like you that make such a huge difference and are changing policy. And that's the other big part about all this is that this work and this knowledge, we can ripple it out and we can change policy. Of course, people like Rebecca is doing it on a very focused and specific way. But like we all, by having the conversation about these things, normalizing these conversations, it ripples out and creates massive change. And that's what we need to see all over the place. Because let me tell you, the systems that are set up right now to deal with these disasters aren't great. And that's saying it very nice. And so there's a better way and and we know about it and we're creating it and we only can do that together, and that's why I keep reiterating it's always a co-creation. So I've often always learned so much from my students in past courses, and become really, really great friends with my past students in courses. I actually have one here today. His name is Matt Fiddler, another Matt here, and he was my student in a permaculture design course that I put together after the fires. We actually met in Paradise after the fires. He was doing some filming and editing of a series that he was working on, and that's how we initially bumped into each other. And then when he found out I was doing a permaculture design course, he signed up for it, and we've been chatting ever since. And now we're collaborating on this. If you guys saw the video that was put out there about the training, that was Matt doing the editing, and yeah, awesome guy. He's a radio editor, producer for a bunch of programs here for the North State Public Radio in California. And Matt, I was going to bring you on. Yeah, you tell people, yeah, just kind of our story and kind of your story learning through me and other people.
Yeah, yeah, happy to. Yeah, as Matt said, I do radio and podcast production primarily, a little bit of video, doing more and more video these days. Um, but yeah, I met, Matthew when I came back to California. I'm a native Californian, but I came back here and it was the start of all these really disastrous fires, right? California's a fire ecology. We've always had fires, but things seem to be getting worse. And I was looking for a new project, and I said, "Oh wow, well this seems like a real calling." And we had a major fire in Santa Rosa, which is the first time I ever really saw a wildfire, take over a larger city, and then the Car Fire that devastated big parts of Redding, and then the Camp Fire happened and devastated, and it's still California's deadliest fire in Paradise, which is just 20 minutes from where I live. And it seemed like, okay, this is my next big project because I'm not understanding this. And I've been doing kind of environmental reporting and long form storytelling for years. And I was just completely confused about what was happening. And that's where I met Matthew Trumm. And really him and many of his colleagues changed the trajectory of my career and my life and my outlook on um, how humans are this really important part of the ecosystem and have always been. We've just been in kind of denial of that since or a lot of us, not everyone, but a large part of mainstream society has been kind of denial that we're part of the ecosystem, especially since the Industrial Revolution, and how much that we've really uh, have this huge impact on the environment and our own ecosystems, largely beneficial, but more often than not recently unbeneficial. And so, yeah, I took Matthew's permaculture course, and I produced this series called California Burning, which is still available. And a big part of what I learned, and I'm still learning, is that the phrase "an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure" is just so apt, right? We spend billions of dollars, maybe trillions of dollars, cleaning up after disasters and things like wildfires and flooding, and which are so related. I watched that happen right here, right? The wildfires happen, and then suddenly our rivers and our creeks aren't very good at absorbing water and cause high floods. And if we put a fraction, just like a small fraction of the amount of money we did into prevention and understanding how we can prepare for wildfires, because they do happen, we could save 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times that amount of money afterwards. And so, right, like, we're pay $1,000 to learn about wildfire resilience could potentially save you 10,000 in the near future. And that's why I'm just such a big believer in these, educational opportunities. And I think there could be a better person than Matthew Trumm and this amazing crew of people. Some of them are here, but people like John Liu, who's was a part of my wildfire resilience kind of series. But this is so practical and so encompassing. It's been amazing, all these people that Matthew have been able to put together. So yeah, I'm just a big believer in the product, and I just want as many people to learn this information, because we can't depend on the government and the insurance companies on doing the right project on the right thing necessarily, because they're very focused on winning elections and quarterly profits. But if we all do the right thing, we're going to save money in taxes. We're going to need less money on disaster relief. We're going to spend less money on our insurance when we have neighborhoods that are built better. When we have properties that don't need to be constantly getting bailouts for disasters. And I can go on, but I'll shut up for a while because I know there's more people to talk. But I'm just extremely excited and yeah, about this project, and I hope as many people can sign up as possible who are really concerned about their properties and their future living in wildfire-prone areas. So thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. Right on. Yeah, it's what you said there is so real. I mean, these systems, like why I get called to go to these disasters, why we have such great results is because systems like permaculture design and other regenerative systems, they are it's always the thing to do. But when a disaster happens, then people start to realize it. It's where it really kicks in. But we don't want to be doing this just in response to disasters. I know I don't. It's something that we need to embed into the daily culture of our communities. And resilience is something that has to be there well ahead of when we deal with these situations. And it's something that can improve your life every single day. All these systems we're going to talk about, like water harvesting systems, how to rehydrate your landscape, right? How to, basically design, the world around you. It's more efficient. We're talking about efficiency, like some practical stuff that saves you a ton of money, keeps you secure during the unsettling times, whether it's financial, upsets or weather events. So many things are happening all over the world. It really does apply to a multitude of other disasters. However, we're focused specifically on wildfire, but as Matt mentioned, the flooding is like hand in hand with it. It's all these realities of how we valued money over ecosystem function, which is the highest value on Earth. And when we've missed the understanding of like, here's all these elements that do all this work for us all the time, all these animals and trees and the fungi in the ground and the soil microorganisms and all these things working in this like beautiful rhythm and harmony. They're not loud, right? They're not telling us, to buy their product, they're just giving it for free every single day. And we need to understand that this is the foundation of all life on Earth. And if we don't understand that, we're going to continue to have these issues. And so, yeah, that's really the heart and soul of this course. And yeah, we're super excited to share it with the world. So it starts in February of 2026. Don't miss out. We got another webinar coming up where we can answer any questions that you have. Don't miss out on the early bird discount, 15% until November 30th. Don't forget we have payment plans available for all levels of income accessibility. If you have the ability to pay it forward, it helps those lower tier spots to be available. So wanted to put that out there. We do offer group discounts, 10 people or more, for 10% additionally, and we offer the wildfire survivor discount as well. And we're not gonna, you'll just have to show us something, but yeah, it's kind of broad with the wildfire survivor. And yeah, come and join us, and share. I know there's so many people also that are going to watch this that are also people that hold knowledge, that could add to this course. We're still building some pieces to the course, and so it's going to continue to evolve as we bring in more experts, do more interviews and things like that. So we will have some room there. So if you are somebody who can contribute to the course, please reach out to us as well. Going to say that email once again is hello@erc.earth. So that's the best way to get a hold of us. And we're very excited to bring this unique training to everyone. So I'm going to ask my team if I missed anything.
We're really excited, like you said, really foresee this being a highly impactful training for the world. So jump in and be a part of it. And yeah, we're always at the end of the inbox if you have any questions. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming, being here.
Okay.
And yeah, let's restore the air.